I want to hear your thoughts on Pain and Glory.
Speaking of Antonio Banderas, two movies this year, of course, The Laundromat, which we just spoke about, and Pain and Glory. Is the lead of the new Pedro Almodovar film. And Almodovar is a Spanish auteur that is incredibly prolific, who was just completely off my radar until this year. I had not seen any of his movies before. He is a 70-year-old Spanish man who has 2 Oscars and 2 other noms and just got the honorary Golden Lion at Venice. Definitely a pillar of the international filmmaking community, and I just have not seen his movies. So I definitely want to go back and see that because I really liked the first movie I've seen, Pain and Glory. It's interesting. This movie is kind of like a bit of like autofiction, where it's Antonio Banderas is playing a old, seasoned, famous filmmaker who's in a creative rut and also dealing with a lot of physical and emotional pain. And it's not direct. Everything that happens is pretty fictional in terms of like the life of this character played by Banderas, but it's pretty much ascribed to like Almodovar's kind of digging deep in terms of what he's showing us here. And they actually recreated his actual apartment for the apartment set in the movie, which is a pretty cool touch.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to really spoil anything. Not that there's a whole lot to spoil. It's a very emotional but subdued movie. And Banderas, who, I mean, for the most part, has not lent himself to prestige fare, right? Even his Spanish work. For what do we know him best with over here? Like Zorro and Shrek 2? Like what's the best Banderas movie to you?
Puss in Boots, dog. No doubt.
Yeah. And like,
no, probably Zorro.
Yeah. And here, he's given a very tender, vulnerable performance. That's clearly his best work. And he's been thrown around as a best actor contender. And as we've said before, that's a very stacked field this year with a lot of A-list people. So I'm not sure if a role that's a little measured like this performance is enough to actually get the recognition. But he's great. And again, he carries the whole movie.
I mean, man, there's not going to be a spot for Banderas when Adam Driver gets a nom for Kylo Ren, Marriage Story, and the report.
So. Of course. And right. And Brad Pitt gets Ad Astra and
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time, of course. Yeah, it's funny too, because this movie, the way it works basically is, and this is not, I'm not really spoiling anything, but what's the character's name? I forget his name, but Banderas' director character experiments with heroin to mitigate his pain. He's like he says it's for research. He takes it from a actor he had worked with 30 years ago and kind of mended some fences. And with that, when he gets really fucked up, he kind of has flashbacks. And these flashbacks we see about his upbringing, the east coast of Spain by Valencia, where he grows up. And his mom in the flashbacks is played by Penelope Cruz, the GOAT, of course. And, in these flashback scenes, a lot of times they're quite short and the meaning is not actually obvious at the time. You kind of have to watch more of the movie to understand why you saw that beforehand. But you learn more about his sexual awakening. Almodovar, of course, is a gay man. And just the cause of his pain and who he became. And ultimately, yeah, it's a really subdued movie. I think Banderas, quietly has a lot of range in this movie, despite not having any really showy scenes the way you expect of a best actor frontrunner. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this, and it's all in Spanish, of course. So you got to lock in. I saw this right after Parasite, which was all in Korean. So I was doing a lot of reading that day. But yeah, I think this is definitely worth people's time, and it's it's a small release. He's big overseas, but he's never had a huge hit over here. So this is not going to expand too much bigger, I'd imagine. But I recommend Pain and Glory.
It's funny. Back when I was a kid, probably when Zorro came out, I would have bet a lot of money that Eric Bana and Antonio Banderas both would have been a lot bigger than they ended up being. I feel like they're two that, because Bana had he had Black Hawk Down, and everybody was in that. But then you also had him in like Troy and like a lot of other movies like that. And I felt like he was like, yeah, he was
Hulk
on the
movie.
cusp of being like huge. And both of them feel like actors that never really quite became what I expected. So I'm glad to see him doing some nice roles here as he's getting older.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just kind of been more famous as like a famous husband these days. Yeah. And like, again, like I can't speak to all of his international work, of course, but I think it's just nice I think for U.S. audiences to see a different side of Banderas. Absolutely.